A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Welcome to a special situational report of my weird prompts. I am Herman Poppleberry, and today we are shifting away from our usual format of exploring strange AI behaviors and digital oddities to provide a critical, high-level briefing on the rapidly escalating situation in the Middle East. It is February 27, 2026, and the geopolitical landscape has shifted more in the last 24 hours than it has in the previous 6 months. Joining me to parse through these developments are my brother Corn and our good friend Raz.
Hello, everyone. Since the usual third chair is away today, I am stepping in to offer what I can. I may just be a stuffed bear, but I have been watching the news tickers very closely this morning. I have been sitting here by the window, watching the digital scrolls, and it feels like the air is getting a bit heavy, does it not? There is a certain stillness in the reports that usually precedes a very loud noise.
It certainly does, Raz. And for the record, I am very much awake and ready to dive into this. We are looking at a series of developments over the last 24 hours that suggest we are moving past the point of diplomatic posturing and towards something much more kinetic. We have been talking about the slow burn of 2025 for a long time, but this morning the burn is no longer slow. Herman, you have been tracking the latest from the International Atomic Energy Agency. What is the baseline we are starting with today? What is the ground truth as of this hour?
The baseline, Corn, is a confidential report that was circulated to member states of the International Atomic Energy Agency earlier today, February 27th. This report is the smoking gun that many in the intelligence community have been fearing. It confirms that Iran has successfully moved a significant stockpile of 60% enriched uranium into a hardened, newly reinforced underground tunnel complex at the Isfahan nuclear site. To put that in perspective for our listeners who might not follow nuclear physics daily, 60% is not just a random number. It is a short technical step, some experts say a matter of days away from 90%, which is weapons-grade material. The report estimates that Tehran now possesses approximately 440 kilograms of this 60% material. If they chose to further enrich that to 90%, they would have enough for roughly 10 to 12 nuclear warheads. This is not a theoretical threat anymore, it is a logistical reality sitting in a tunnel.
And the significance of the location, Isfahan, cannot be overstated. We have to remember the history here. Isfahan was a major target during the June 2025 conflict, which many refer to as the 12-Day War or Operation Midnight Hammer. That conflict was supposed to have neutralized these capabilities. Herman, how did they manage to get this much material back underground so quickly after the massive strikes we saw last year? I remember the satellite footage of the craters. It looked like the surface of the moon.
It appears to have been what intelligence analysts are calling a frenetic reconstruction phase. While the 2025 strikes caused significant surface damage and destroyed the primary enrichment halls, the deepest parts of the tunnel complex at Isfahan, the areas bored deep into the mountain rock, remained largely intact. Over the last 8 months, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has been working around the clock, using North Korean tunneling technology and specialized reinforced concrete to reinstall centrifuge cascades. This report is the first formal confirmation that those efforts have not only succeeded, but have actually exceeded their previous capacities. They are using the newer IR6 and IR8 centrifuges now, which are much more efficient than the older models destroyed in 2025.
It sounds a bit like a game of hide and seek where the stakes are very high. If they are putting things in tunnels, it suggests they are expecting someone to try and knock on the door again. But I wonder, why 60%? If they want a deterrent, why not go all the way to 90% right now? Why wait at the threshold?
That is a profound question, Raz. 60% is often seen as a political lever. It is high enough to terrify the international community and provide a breakout capability within days, but it is technically not a bomb yet. It allows Tehran to claim they are still within the bounds of civilian research. However flimsy that claim is, while holding a loaded gun to the head of the negotiation process. However, the United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff warned just this morning that the threshold has been crossed. He stated that Iran is now essentially 1 week away from having industrial-grade bomb material. That 1 week window is what is driving the absolute urgency in Washington right now. We are no longer talking about months or years, we are talking about a calendar week.
That urgency is translating into very visible, very public movement on the ground. We saw a massive announcement from the United States State Department today. They have authorized what they call an authorized departure for non-emergency personnel and family members from the United States mission in Israel. This includes the embassy in Jerusalem and the branch office in Tel Aviv. Ambassador Mike Huckabee reportedly told staff to leave today, while commercial flights are still an option. Herman, when we see an embassy evacuation like this, what does it tell us about the internal timeline the Pentagon is working with?
It is a classic pre-conflict indicator, corn. In the world of intelligence and diplomacy, you do not evacuate the families of your diplomats unless you anticipate a significant retaliatory event. If the United States or Israel is planning a strike on those Isfahan tunnels, they know with absolute certainty that Iran will respond with its long-range missile arsenal, the Shahab and the Fatah missiles. Those missiles would likely be aimed at Israeli population centers and potentially United States interests in the region. By clearing out non-essential personnel now, the United States is reducing its target surface and preparing for a period where the airspace might be closed and the ground situation might be chaotic. It is a clearing of the decks.
It feels a bit like when you see the birds all fly away right before a big storm hits. They know something is coming because they can feel the change in the pressure. But what about the people who cannot fly away? The people living in the region must be feeling that pressure too. I think about the families in Tel Aviv or Isfahan who are just trying to go to work today.
They are, Raz, and that pressure is reflected in the global energy markets. This is where the situation hits everyone's wallet. Brent crude oil has spiked 6% in just the last 24 hours. It is now trading near $115 per barrel. That is a direct reaction to the fear that the Strait of Hormuz could be closed. If a conflict breaks out, Iran has long threatened to block that waterway, which would effectively cut off a huge portion of the world's oil supply. We are seeing gas prices jump 20 cents in a single afternoon in some parts of the United States.
And the United States Treasury Department is already trying to squeeze that revenue stream before the first shot is even fired. Today, they issued new sanctions targeting 15 vessels identified as part of Iran's shadow fleet. These are the tankers that move Iranian oil under false flags, often using aging ships with disabled transponders to bypass international restrictions. By targeting these ships now, the United States is trying to drain the regime's primary source of hard currency before any potential military action begins. They are trying to bankrupt the war machine while it is still in the garage.
Let us talk about the military posture for a moment, because this is where things get very specific and very concerning. We are seeing the largest United States military buildup in the region since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. But the geography of this buildup is different this time. It is not about Kuwait or Saudi Arabia. Herman, tell us about the situation at Ovda Air Base.
This is perhaps the most significant tactical shift of the week. Usually, the United States relies on a network of bases in countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, or Jordan for its operations in the Middle East. However, those Arab allies have officially declared their neutrality this time. They have refused to allow their territory or their airspace to be used for offensive strikes against Iran because they fear Iranian retaliation on their own soil. They do not want their desalination plants or oil refineries targeted. As a result, the United States has deployed 11 to 12 F-22 Raptor stealth fighters to Ovda Air Base in southern Israel.
The F-22 is the premier air superiority fighter in the world. It is virtually invisible to the radar systems Iran currently possesses. Placing them at Ovda, which is deep in the Negev desert, puts them within minutes of Iranian airspace without needing permission from any other country. It is a clear signal that the United States is prepared to go it alone with Israel if necessary. We are also seeing reports of B-21 Raider activity, though the Pentagon will not confirm that.
It is interesting that the neighbors are saying they want no part of it. It is like a neighborhood dispute where everyone is closing their curtains and locking their doors, hoping the trouble stays on the other side of the fence. But if a fire starts in the middle house, the heat will still reach the others, will it not? Neutrality is a very difficult thing to maintain when the sky is full of missiles.
Raz. And that is why the United States has also positioned 2 carrier strike groups in the area to provide a defensive umbrella. The USS Gerald R. Ford is currently in the Arabian Sea, and the USS Abraham Lincoln is in the eastern Mediterranean. We are also seeing a massive logistical tail. Over 100 fuel tankers and 200 cargo planes, mostly C-17s and C-5s, have moved into the theater since mid-February. This is not the footprint of a one-off warning shot or a surgical strike. This is the footprint of a sustained, multi-week air campaign designed to dismantle an entire national infrastructure.
And while this build-up is happening, the diplomatic track seems to be hitting a brick wall. We just saw the conclusion of round 3 of the Oman-mediated talks in Geneva. The Omani foreign minister claimed there was significant progress, but no formal agreement was reached. Herman, what is the actual gap between the two sides right now? Why can they not just sign a piece of paper and stop the ships?
The gap is a strategic chasm, corn. The United States, under the current administration's Maximum Pressure 2.0 policy, is demanding the permanent destruction of enrichment sites like Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. They want the surrender of all enriched uranium stockpiles to a third party, likely Russia or China, and a permanent, verifiable ban on any future enrichment. Iran, on the other hand, maintains that enrichment is a sovereign right under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They refuse to discuss their ballistic missile program, calling it non-negotiable for their national defense. They are also demanding the immediate lifting of all sanctions before they move a single gram of material. It is a total deadlock.
It is the classic chicken and egg problem, but with high explosives. Tehran wants the sanctions gone before they disarm, and Washington wants them to disarm before the sanctions are lifted. And in the middle of all this, you have the domestic pressure in Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu's government is facing immense pressure from his coalition to act before those tunnels at Isfahan become impenetrable. There is a belief that once the centrifuges are deep enough, no conventional bomb, not even the GBU-57 bunker buster, will be able to reach them.
I wonder about the technical teams. The report says they are supposed to meet in Vienna next week. If everyone is moving their planes and ships today, does that mean the meeting next week is just for show? Or is there still a tiny window where someone can say, wait, let us talk one more time? I hate to think that the chairs will be empty in Vienna because everyone is already in their cockpits.
That is the million-dollar question, Raz. The Vienna technical talks are one of the key variables to watch over the next 72 hours. If those talks are canceled, or if the Iranian delegation fails to show up, it will be a major signal that the diplomatic window has officially slammed shut. Many analysts believe the Trump administration is using the threat of these talks to see if Iran will blink, but the deployment of the F-22s to Ovda suggests they are not betting on a diplomatic breakthrough. They are preparing for the failure of diplomacy.
We also have to consider the Iranian readiness. They are not just sitting and waiting. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has reportedly moved its mobile missile launchers into hardened positions across the Zagros Mountains. Brigadier General Abolfazl Shikachi issued a warning today stating that any unwise American action will lead to a widespread fire in the region that will consume those who started it. They are preparing their own counter-strike packages, which likely include drone swarms and fast attack craft in the Persian Gulf.
It sounds like both sides are leaning forward as far as they can without falling over. If someone even sneezes, it could start the whole thing. Herman, you mentioned the June 2025 war earlier. How does that history inform what is happening right now? Why did that conflict not settle this? We were told back then that the nuclear threat was over.
Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025 was intended to set the Iranian nuclear program back by a decade, and for a few months it seemed like it had. The surface facilities were leveled, and the command and control nodes were disrupted. But the Iranian regime has proven to be incredibly resilient and, frankly, very clever. They have decentralized their nuclear infrastructure. They no longer rely on one or two big buildings. They have moved as much as possible deep underground into mountains that are difficult to reach even with the most powerful munitions. The current situation is a realization in Washington and Jerusalem that the 2025 strikes were a temporary fix, a mowing of the grass, so to speak. The debate now is whether a much larger, more sustained campaign can do what the 12-day war could not.
And that brings us to the assessment of where we are right now. The trajectory is clearly escalating. We have confirmed weapons great proximity at Isfahan. We have the evacuation of United States Embassy staff, which is never done lightly. We have a massive military buildup that is now fully staged and fueled. And we have a total deadlock in negotiations in Geneva. Herman, what are the specific triggers or tripwires we should be looking for in the next 48 to 72 hours? What tells us the go order has been given?
There are three main things to watch, and they are very specific. First, watch the commercial aviation sector. If we see notices to air missions or NOTAMs issued for the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, or Israeli airspace, that is the final countdown. It means the military is clearing the skies of civilian airliners to make room for combat operations. Second, watch for any movement of the Iranian uranium stockpile. If satellite imagery shows they are moving that 60% material toward a location with top-off enrichment capabilities, it will likely trigger an immediate, automated response. Third, keep an eye on the rhetoric from the technical teams in Vienna. If the head of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, announces that inspectors have been denied access to Isfahan, the window for a strike opens immediately.
It is a very somber picture you are painting. It makes me think about how much effort goes into these machines and these plans, and how little it takes for things to go wrong. I hope the people in those rooms, the ones making the big decisions, are thinking about the quiet afternoons that everyone just wants to get back to. I think about the people who just want to have their tea and watch the sunset without worrying about what is flying overhead.
We all hope for that, Raz. But as an analytical matter, we have to look at the facts as they are, not as we want them to be. The facts today tell us that the United States Central Command has briefed President Trump on a full range of military options, from cyber attacks to full-scale kinetic strikes. This follows the failure of the third round of talks in Geneva. We are in a period of high risk, perhaps the highest risk of kinetic conflict we have seen in decades, even higher than the lead-up to the 2025 war.
And we should mention the role of the regional players one more time, because it is so unique this time around. The neutrality of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates is a massive geopolitical shift. In previous decades, the United States could count on a broad coalition of moderate Arab states to provide basing and support. Now it is a much narrower path. This isolation of the offensive effort to Israeli bases and sea-based assets makes the operation more complex. It means the United States has fewer rungs on the de-escalation ladder. If things go wrong, there are fewer partners to help mediate a ceasefire.
It also means that if Iran retaliates, they might focus their fire more narrowly on Israel and United States naval assets, which could lead to a very intense but geographically concentrated conflict. Or it could spiral if Iran decides to punish the neighbors for even allowing United States ships to operate in the nearby waters. It is a very fragile balance.
It is like a storm where you know the lightning is going to hit, but you do not know which tree it will strike. You just know you should not be standing under any of them. I will be staying away from the tall trees for a while.
That is a very apt analogy, Raz. To summarize the situation as of 2117 UTC on February 27, 2026, the International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that Iran is at a nuclear threshold with 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. The United States has moved its most advanced stealth assets, the F-22s, into the theater at Ovda Air Base and has begun evacuating non-essential personnel and their families from Israel. Negotiations in Geneva have stalled, and the global oil market is reacting to the very real possibility of a major war in the coming days.
We will be monitoring this situation around the clock. The next 48 hours are critical. If there are further developments, especially regarding those Vienna talks or any movement in the Strait of Hormuz, we will bring you another situational report immediately. This is a time for clear eyes and to focus on the facts as they emerge, rather than the rumors on social media.
And a time to stay safe and look out for one another. Thank you for letting me join you today. It is a lot to take in, and it is a bit scary, but I think it is better to know what is happening than to be left in the dark. Knowledge is a bit like a flashlight in a dark room, even if the room is a bit messy.
Well said, Raz. This has been a special situational report from My Weird Prompts. I am Herman Poppleberry.
I am Corn.
And I am Rez.
We will continue to track these developments as they unfold. Thank you for listening, and please stay informed and stay safe. We will be back as soon as the situation warrants.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, my weird prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts, that's the flows from sloth.